I'm Emanuele Pellegrini and I play piano.
Emanuele, piano player from Italy?
Correct.
Where were you born?
I'm from a not really famous area in the very center of the country called Umbria, in a tiny village there called Casteltodino, a very tiny one.
Real tiny village?
Quite, yeah.
But still not so tiny that jazz was not heard there.
True. Actually, the village is part of the province of this city called Terni, which is actually where the Umbria Jazz Festival was born. So in the first year, actually Miles Davis, Bill Evans, all these people played in this town that is nearby, which is quite a thing. It's kind of funny because it's not really a big city.
Yeah. What is it with
yeah.
Italy and jazz? Such a rich history.
There is something about it, you're right. I have the feeling that it's also probably about the thing that there was such a American culture invasion after the Second World War and stuff. There was so much of this myth of the Americans. And there was a lot of culture coming there. A lot of we were watching a lot of movies, as everybody in Europe, of course, but there was something. And yeah, must be something. Also with some form of traditional music that is really, there is a lot of traditional music that it kind of reminds of flamenco music or really rhythmic music where rhythm is really central. So it might be also some.
You mean the folk music from Italy?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Region.
That's what I mean. Yeah. There's really not famous stuff, but maybe there is some form of rhythmical heritage. I don't know.
And when did music enter your life seriously?
Has it ever? I don't know. Well, I kind of always fooled around with the instruments I found in my family's house since I was really young, like a child. And then when around the age of high school, so when I was 15 or something, it was pretty clear that I had some form of passion, that I really spent a lot of time there. And mostly actually it was a bit my decision because I realized that it was kind of easy for me. So I thought I think it's fair that everybody would do what they're good and easy about, So I felt maybe this is a bit my thing. So I took it a bit more seriously.
And how did you take it more seriously?
Well, I started to take jazz classes from this teacher that was in this town. And there was anyway this little jazz festival, so I would go and meet all the people. Yeah. And then I started to attend to the conservatory actually a bit later than that. I did some preliminary things and then I went to the conservatory in Italy. And then I started studying at the CVA later. But yeah, I kind of took the school path.
And in that period, who was your biggest influence?
I had a major musical crush on Bill Evans for a long while. And I totally still have it. I think it's maybe has been the biggest influence on my piano development. I always had, I think my biggest influence actually is Miles Davis, not piano related, but it's it never faded, not even a bit.
Yeah.
I always have a little bit of a God-like relationship.
Miles Davis is an interesting name for you to mention in this stage of the interview because I wanted to go to another field and Miles Davis is a good bridge because I think you will agree with me, I hope you will agree with me, that Miles Davis had a very, very developed sense for visuals. Right. He was very visual oriented. Just look at him.
Indeed.
You know what I mean? You do have a very strong link. Also, if I look at your EPK and other stuff I know from you, with photography.
True. I like to take a lot of pictures. I also have my little Instagram page only for pictures, like camera pictures. Yeah. True. I don't know. At the end, most of the times I play music, I kind of feel like I'm somehow depicting image.
Yeah.
So somehow it feels like it's just a different media to actually deliver the same kind of content.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really feel connected to images a lot. I often connect to musicians that have this. Actually, I was thinking also, I did a thesis years ago on Wayne Shorter and on his compositions, and
Yes.
I was really struck by the thing that he was really into drawing. He always had this. Actually, no, he was into comics. He really loved comics when he was a kid, and then he was drawing a lot, and then he started doing music after that. But I have the feeling that he also kind of always delivers some form of really visual, either character or situation or something that has a lot to do with, in a way, these like kind of comics images that are really, really, how to say, like fantastic, full of mystery or full of like, it's not really subtle. So I have the feeling that there is, in a way, I kind of wrote that it just kept doing the same thing, but with a different instrument,
Yeah.
So yeah.
When you play, do you have visual experiences when you improvise?
Oh, that's a good question. In a way, I would say I do actually. I never got this question before. I relate a lot to so it actually starts a bit further. Like when I started playing, I started by myself. I would relate a lot to the shapes I would see on the keyboard. And indeed, it's not a case that I play piano that's really graphic. So in a way, I actually see a lot of things on the keyboard. So often, even if I don't look at the keyboard, I have a very clear mental image of it. And I kind of follow a lot shapes in this sense. So maybe not necessarily something that I imagine in a fantastic world or like images in the way that you maybe like oniric kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I relate a lot to the shapes of what I play. To me, everything that I play really, it's really, really strongly related to the visual shape. Yeah. I had some experience in teaching, and I always try to kind of communicate this a lot, because somehow I have the feeling that especially nowadays the visual communication is so important. So we are all a little bit primed to this kind of connecting very quick to something that is visual.
So sort of photographs for your ears.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I also wrote something like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like, how did I rate? Like framing sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's a very strong. I just feel comfortable with that way of looking at it. I'm not saying that it's the best, or I'm not saying that that works better in any way, but it just feels very, very natural. Very natural, actually.
And it's yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also feels like coming back to my nature in some way, because through like learning improvisation through jazz music, I try to force myself into that kind of mindset of like connecting, for instance, I don't know, like a chord scale or like a specific style approach. Then at some point I started to realize that some stuff I kept doing very like shape-related things. I don't know how to explain better, and that weren't necessarily related to any kind of stylistic reference in this sense. And I remember one of the realization when I was studying in the conservatory is that I was just fooling around, and my friends were like, "What's that? That's so cool." I was like, "What?" And I kind of realized that actually that stuff that for me was very natural, like improvising on keeping some form of shape and moving that kind of concepts, it wasn't obvious. For me, it was so obvious that I felt like this is like nothing can be interesting if it's this obvious, But actually, it really wasn't for other people, and that was like a cool moment. And I still feel like this sometimes when I just check something out and people are like, "Whoa, like what? This is obvious." Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very interesting story. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was really nice.